welcome to 2024. So I wrote down a couple of questions as we start this. And so I want you guys to write this down and answer this for yourself as we start to plan the new year. So the first question is, how are you approaching this year? And here's what I mean by that. Are you excited? Are you you think that it's going to be a great year? You're ready to embrace everything. You're turned on, you're turned up, you're ready to go, right? That's where we want you to be, obviously. Or do you have some, I don't know, anxiety about it? Maybe some trepidation. I mean, are you concerned or maybe questioning what kind of year this is? I think it's important for you to do a check-in and see where you are. And then the follow-up question for that is, what steps are you willing to take in this year so that you can achieve your goals? What steps are you willing to take? I'm very fortunate that I coach a lot of great people, and almost, I would say, everyone in my schedule did achieve their goals or did better. But that's not true for everyone, is it? I mean, and you don't have to admit this, you don't have to raise your hand, but we've all had times where at the end of the year, we looked back and we were like, well, it was a good year, but I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. Anybody other than me ever have that situation that, it was decent, but you didn't hit that goal? So if we want to look at where we're going to be a year from now, what's that feeling that you want to have? Do you want to have that feeling that, hey, I did what I said I was going to do, and I'm excited, and I feel like my business really moved forward? Or do you want to keep having that same feeling? I think the answer is pretty obvious, right? We want to have that feeling that we achieved everything that we wanted to achieve. So how we approach the first quarter is the key to all of this. And there's been a lot of discussion over the years with coaches and with some of my clients. What's the most important quarter of the year? And I'm going to tell you guys, in my opinion, the first quarter is the most important quarter of the year, followed close second with the second quarter. Because if you can have a good first half of the year, the rest of the year is going to be fantastic. And we'll get more into that in just a minute. But the first quarter starts today, so we need to have a killer first quarter. So the purpose of this call today is to get our year started the right way and with some thoughts and action steps. But the goal is to have a perfect first quarter. So please write that down. We want to have a perfect first quarter. So here's your first action step. I want you guys to calendar your year out. I can tell you, I've already calendared my year out. I know when I'm going to be on vacation. I know what days I'm going to take off. I know what my schedule is basically going to be, and I'm planning for it. I'm making reservations for vacations. I know when the Watson Powers event is going to be in September. I know everything I need to do. The reason this is so important, there's a couple of things to consider here. First of all, if you can be 100% honest with yourself about the number of days that you're going to work and when you're going to work, there's a higher probability that you're going to hit your goal. Because we've got to get out of that mindset that we can catch up. You guys ever had that feeling that you're like, oh no, I can catch up? Guess what, guys? Can we ever really catch up once we get behind? No. Here's Cydney's, this is my famous quote. You ready? Write this down. You know what the best way to not get behind is? This is very profound, by the way. Best way to not get behind? Just don't get behind. Start today and do whatever it takes so that you don't get behind. So it begins with calendaring the year. Now, you may not know if you're taking a vacation in July, you may not know the exact date right now, but you know approximately, right? So let's plan for it today. And then when you go back and you review your business plan, make sure that your business plan is reflecting the right number of days that you're going to work. Now, there are in work days, Monday through Friday work days, there are 265. I think this year we have 266 because there's a leap year, 266 work days in this calendar year. The first half of the year actually has 130 work days when you pull out like the national holidays and times that we typically take off. There's 130 work days Monday through Friday, the first half of the year. The second half of the year has 113. Now, I want you guys to think about the significance of that. That's 17 more days that you get to work the first half of the year versus the last half of the year. See, that's why this first quarter is so important. Now, here's where these numbers come from. You've got the last half of the year, you've got 4th of July, you've got Labor Day. If you're in the US, you've got that whole week of Thanksgiving. And even though you guys tell us that you're working the last 2 weeks of the year, the reality is you're not really working the last 2 weeks of the year. So if you take those days and then you compare that to the first of the year, you have January the 1st and really Memorial Day, and that's it. And for some of you, you might take Good Friday off, but not usually. So the reason I'm bringing this up is your opportunity to get ahead of your goal is going to be in the first half of the year. So I'm going to make a suggestion to all of you guys. You ready? Don't take vacations the first half of the year. Does that make sense? I mean, you may have a kid if you've got small children and you're going to do the spring break thing, okay, you got to live your life. Work during the prime time, and that's the first 6 months of the year. So if I coach you, you've already heard this a million times, so forgive me for repeating this. But the truth of the matter is, if you're not pretty much on track at mid-year, and knowing that there's only 113 work days the second half of the year, if you're not on track, can you really catch up in Q2 and Q3? It's possible if you're close, but if you're not super close, there's just not enough daylight. Literally, by the time you get into Q4, you've got daylight savings time and you've got kids being back in school, and literally daylight is a problem because it gets dark so early. So the point here is make the most of this first 6 months. So number one is calendar your year, and let's plan to work as much as we can during that prime time. Second thing, I want you to create a new time management habit today. Who wants to admit they actually took off the last 2 weeks of the year? Come on, everybody, raise your hand. I mean, some of you might have worked kind of half time, but the reality is we did not work full force, did we? We slept in a little later, stayed up a little later. We weren't on our normal schedule. Can we at least admit that, right? So over that 2 week period of time, you created a habit. You created a habit of not respecting your schedule. And that's okay. It is what it is. But now you have to go back and create the new habit. You've got to get back on your schedule and create the new time management habit, which means whatever it is for you, what time do you need to get up in the morning? What's that morning schedule going to look like for you? And let's get back to that routine that we know is a money-making routine. Now, I want to add to this in terms of a time management habit. And I want you guys to remember that time management is not just about your schedule. That's just part of time management. Time management is how you're managing your time. So it's number one, following the schedule, but it's also how you move from one activity to the next, how easily you move from prospecting to doing your admin, or from a listing appointment to going back and prospecting. So are you moving from one activity to the next? And the third part of time management are the decisions that you're making regarding the tasks that you're actually completing every day. That's time management. The schedule is just the beginning part. So let's create a new time management habit and make better decisions, particularly this first 6 months, and with a big star around the first quarter. So the next thing I wrote down is our goal is to have a perfect first quarter. So let's define that. Let's see, who do I want to pick on? Let's see. David, take yourself off of mute for a second.
Here.
David, what is your listing take-in goal for the year?
120.
Okay, 120. So that's easy math, right? He's trying to do 10 a month. So in order for David to have a perfect first quarter, he needs to take 30 listings in the first quarter.
Probably 35.
Okay, good. Minimum.
Because we have less time in the first half of the year, like you said.
Mm-hmm. So he's got to take 35 listings. And if he does it, he set himself up for the right number of sales and pendings in the second quarter. If he comes in, and I'm not trying to be negative, but this is just real. So let's say David, let's say he doesn't do it. He's going to do it because I know him and he works really hard. But let's say he decides he's going to take the month of March off and go to South America for a month, and he doesn't do it. And good for him if he gets to go to South America. But if he only takes 20 listings the first quarter, what's the chance of him hitting that 120 at the end of the year?
Tough.
It's again, the chance is probably zero. And the reason is because you can't make it up. Especially when you're dealing with these kind of numbers, the numbers are too big. If he took 20, he has to make up 15 listings really over the next 90 days. And it's almost impossible to do. So again, I'll go back to my famous quote, the best way to not get behind is don't get behind. So this month he needs to take 12 listings minimum. He's got to take 12 listings. And if he does that this month, check, he's one step closer to having a perfect quarter. Now, in terms of closed and pendings, and I've been a real estate broker for all of my life, and I will tell you that in closed and pendings, most companies, and I've got some brokers on here, they'll attest to this, in terms of new business generated, you're going to generate about 20% of your pendings and your closings that first quarter. So whatever your number is, so David, how many deals do you want to do? Close next year, or this year rather?
It's 120. It's also the same. Typically, I run a 1-to-1 ratio, listings taken, closed for the team.
So minimum standard for him is going to be 30 closed and pending, okay? Because the year always starts out a little bit slower on the pending side. But if he takes the 35 listings and he ends up with 30 closed and pendings, he's going to probably hit his number. He'll be at 50% at mid-year. And that's what the goal is. Is this making sense, guys? So you have to pay attention now. If you pay attention now, then the rest of the second quarter is going to line up exactly the way that you want. And if you're at 50% at mid-year, you've got a very good chance that you're going to hit your goal unless you just completely stopped working.
How many pendings is he carrying on a monthly basis? Are you saying it's 30 according to his numbers?
Yeah. So if he wants to do 120, the good rule of thumb is whatever your monthly goal, this is a little quick broker math for you guys, whatever your monthly goal for closings is, you want to be at 1.5 times that in pendings all the time. And in reality, if you want to be really safe, you'd be at 2 times whatever your close goal is. So for David, he wants to close 10 a month. He needs to carry 15 pendings pretty much all year, because that takes into consideration carryover, cancellations, etc. If he had 20 all the time, he would 100% follow, he would hit his goal. So Miguel, that brings up a really good point. A good way for you, and I used to do this as a broker, one of the things that and as an agent too, that I would look at every Monday is how many pendings am I carrying? And if I was at 1.5 pendings, 1.5 times whatever my close goal was, I felt really good. I thought, okay, I'm on track. But if you get below 1.5, that's the danger zone. More than likely, you're not going to hit the next month. You're not going to hit your close goal. So that's just a little cheater that thank you for bringing that up. Okay. Absolutely. So everybody, action step is you want to write down, what does that perfect first quarter look like in terms of numbers for you? And then you're going to back that out and say, January, I need to do X. February, I need to do Y. March, I need to do Z. So that when you're talking to your coach, we can look at that and say, okay, we're on the right path. And then don't get mad at us if we say, hey, we're in the danger zone. We got to pick it up. There's still time, but we want to do everything that we can that first quarter to be on track. Everybody say, yes, I'm going to be on first. Yes, I'm going to be on first. I'm going to be on track. Okay. So the next thing that I wrote down is this. Rethink your sources of business. Rethink your sources of business. I have some clients that have come into my schedule in the past several months that when I look at their sources, they're spending a lot of time in cooler sources that are not garnering as much business as it needs to. So the hot sources today, expireds, a lot of people, we're seeing expireds, not in every market, but in some markets, expireds are becoming more and more active. So take advantage of the expireds and the cancels. FSBOs are back in a big way, and stop telling yourself they're all selling, because are all your listings selling? No. So all the FSBOs aren't selling. So FSBOs are back in a big way. Other sources that I would be looking at too is for rent by owners. I'd look at absentee owners. I'd be looking at probate. I'd be looking at divorces and likely to sell. Now, I'm going to share with you guys and I've done this before, but I think I see a lot of new faces. There's a company called the Share Group that's very inexpensive. They can sell you lists of, at least I'm not sure in Canada, but I know in the US, they can sell you lists of everyone in whatever zip codes you want that have been divorced in the past 2 years. Now, do you think that's a pretty good source to be calling versus a cold call? Yes. They can sell you list of absentees likely to sell. And the likely to sell are people, I don't know if you guys are seeing this silver tsunami thing. Are you guys seeing this? They can send you silver tsunami numbers as well. So that's a really good source. And again, they're not expensive. I think I priced one out yesterday. It was about 1,700 records, and it was $300. So I don't mind paying $300 for 1,700 people that are likely to sell in the next year. Do you? That's cheap. Another program, if you're not familiar with Property Radar, you can go into Property Radar and it's a couple of $100 a month, and you can search out things like distressed property, people that have owned their home for more than X number of years. So you might check that one out too. It's a little bit more, it's accessible to you all the time. You pay a monthly fee. And if you're really techie, that's a good one to use. If you're just looking for the list, call the share group. So those are two sources that I'm familiar with that I'm really happy with. Now, and I'm not saying don't do just listed, just sold calls. I'm not saying that. If you're getting, if your conversion rate is super high, great. But why not call people that are more likely to sell over just doing a just listed, just sold? Does that make sense? Who gets tired of the grind? And everybody needs to raise their hand. Who gets tired of the grind, right? Stop grinding. Stop grinding. And I'm going to give you the key. This is a great coaching point. Stop focusing on the contacts. This is your next point. Stop focusing on the contacts. Oh my gosh. I used to, in my previous company, I was vice president over the coaches, and I would get calls from clients all the time. They're saying, my coach only talks about contacts. And I can tell you that is, stop talking about contacts. This is not about contacts. Now, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying you don't have to talk to people. You do. This is a sales business, right? We have to talk to people in order to make sales. But if you are focused on the contacts, you're focused on the wrong things. So I'll give you an example. I had a client that came into my schedule. I had a coach that was just focused on make more contacts, make more contacts. Great agent in the Washington, D.C. area. And it was taking him about 280 contacts to take a listing. And I said, what? Well, this number's so high. You're such a great agent. And he said, well, I'm doing a lot of just listed, just solds. I'm doing a lot of cold calls. I said, let's do this. Let's count the contacts because he was analytical, but that's not your goal. Your goal is the number of appointments that you're setting every week. That's the goal. So we identified he needed to set three appointments a week. So did you know that we took him from almost 300 contacts per listing in a matter of 6 weeks down to 80? He started taking more listings in less time, and it's because he was spending so much time and focusing on the contacts. Well, my previous coach said I just had to make 50 contacts a day. You might have to make 50 contacts a day to hit your goal, but that's not what you should be focused on. You should be focused on how many appointments do I need to set every day and every week. And if you focus on that, you will hit your goal. So the grind comes from focusing on the contacts. Would you guys agree with that? Making mindless cold calls is not the answer. It's calling the right people. That's the answer. And I gave you some great ideas on different sources that you can call a few minutes ago. So stop focusing on the contacts. Who have I coached, or who do I coach that I can see on? I see quite a few. Do I ever ask you about contacts? Have I ever asked you? Never. Because at this level, we have to talk about that, you're working with the wrong coach. You know that you have to talk to people. And so when I say don't focus on the contacts, if your goal is to set 3 appointments that week and you need to stay on the phone all day long to do it, great, then do that. But I promise you, when you start focusing on the appointments, not the contacts, you'll get it done in less time. Promise
Cydney,
you.
can I add something
Yeah.
there too?
Please.
Something I heard on one of these calls a few weeks ago, and that was tied to not only just the contacts, making the right contacts, but also the right time. Being here in the Northeast, hitting the contacts last night, it was amazing. People were picking up. They were open to conversation. It was so much easier than your morning contacts.
So it's interesting, Michael. I read an article yesterday. You guys familiar with Baylor University down in Waco? It's a big, very prestigious university. They have a real estate think tank there. And they just did some research, and they said that with cold calls, it's estimated, and this is for an average prospector, it takes 330 contacts to get one appointment. 330. And that of those 330, only 0.33% of them turned into an actual listing. So that means that you need to make 990 contacts to take a listing. I will suggest to you guys, there's a better way. There's a better way. And the way is focus on these better sources. And Michael, to your point, it also said in that survey that the more people answer their phone between 5 and 7 than they do any other time of the day. The report also said that the best days to call are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. The people don't answer their phone as much on Fridays or on Mondays. So just interesting information. That could be true, not true, but you got to figure there's putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into this think tank. So I'm assuming there's going to be some legitimacy to it. Okay, here's the next thing I wrote down is this year you want to be informed. Follow those market stats, your local and the national stats. I check my MLS every single day. I look at stats every single day. Now, a day doesn't tell you isn't a trend, right? You need to learn to study the stats so you know how to respond to them. And so you know how to capitalize on it. You know, for example, I know in my market in the month of November, we had about 350 homes come on the market, but we only had 275 that went under contract. So what does that tell me about my market stats? Where's the market headed in my market for November? It means that the market was actually going down. Now that's probably going to correct itself as we get into this year. But if that trend were to continue, that is a trend, it's not an anomaly. But if you don't know what to look for, you don't know how to read it. So a great stat to look at is the number of new listings versus new pendings every month, because that is a future indicator of what's happening. So if we have more new listings than more new pendings, what does that mean that's happening with the market? It means that the supply is going up, number of sales are going down, so prices could be trending down if that happened over a period of months. If it were even, market stable. Now, we've just come out of a market where it was the opposite, right? You know, we went through 2 or 3 years where we had 300 homes come on the market, but 400 were selling, and that means the market's going up. So study your stats, be informed, know what's happening. It's one of the most important things you can do because it builds your confidence and makes you credible. Next thing I wrote down is be current this year. Be current. Some of you need to be deprogrammed regarding social media. Some of you need to be deprogrammed regarding internet generated leads. You need to be deprogrammed about technology, because right now you need to be checking into AI. You need to be looking at all the sources that are available to you. I was coaching a really good agent that couldn't deprogram themselves. They had all these new leads coming in, and they were leads. And they couldn't figure out that this is just another source of business, because in their mind, they were internet generated and they were bad. They're not bad. It's just another source. So we have to change the way we look at that, because guys, the market, would you guys agree that things are changing? The pickup rate 10 years ago was around 25% on a phone call. What would you say the pickup rate is today? Probably 5. It depends on where you are. If you're in a more traditional area, it's probably going to be 10 to 15%. And what I mean by traditional, meaning not a big metro area. Big metro areas, the pickup rate's going to be way low because of the way that people live, the speed that they live. So be current. Talk to your coach about how you need to be using AI, social media, online lead gen, so that we can help you move on to the next level, because it's happening whether you like it or not. AI is going to change the way we do business, guys, and it's going to happen faster than you think. I had a really interesting thing happen the other day. I had an AI call me on from an insurance company, and it was just like a real person. But I knew, because I'm in sales, I knew it was AI. And so I just, for grins, I answered the questions, talked to the AI. It transferred me to an insurance agent. And now they're giving me a quote on my homeowners. And it was amazing. Now imagine how that application is going to change real estate. It's happening. So stay informed, be current. Next thing I wrote down is invest in yourself. Invest in your business. While everybody out there, you can get on the internet, you can get on social media, especially if you're in the United States. Is there a lot of negativity towards our industry right now? Is that, as our perception is that there's a lot of negativity? Well, here's the truth. don't hold back. This is the time to push forward. Everybody else is scared. You need to stay in the pocket and invest in yourself. This is not the time to pull back. This is the time to move forward. So I was around when the internet came out and they said the internet was going to put us out of business and everything was going to change. I was around when buyer agency came out. Same thing. Do you really think that these lawsuits and all the crap that you're hearing is going to change the industry? It's going to change it some, but we're still going to be here, guys and gals. So don't hold back. Invest in yourself. Come to the event in September. Stay in coaching. Do the things that you need to do so that you can compete in this market. Next, I wrote down avoid the noise. There's a couple of sites that I follow on Facebook. One is Lab Coat Agents and one is Real Estate Mastermind. Now, it's very difficult for me to not get in fights with people when some of the stuff that gets posted, and I don't. But it's very difficult when I see some of the stupidity in our market because the mindset of most real estate agents is not great. It's all the negativity, but it's negativity and stupidity. So avoid the noise. I mean, I almost do it for like comedy now when I read these things. All these agents, they're saying, I need to get a side gig. And I'm like, get a side gig, get on the phone and talk to somebody. But that's the mindset. They keep saying the number of agents is going to go down. It hasn't gone down that much, has it, guys? Not yet. And it may not. So avoid the noise or monitor it. Make sure that you're receiving it in the right way, but don't buy into this rhetoric. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and we're going to deal with it whenever we need to deal with it. We're still going to be in business 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. It's not going to change that much. It may change some of the things, but the basics have always been the same. And then the last thing I wrote down is do the work. Just do the work. Stop thinking about 2020, 21, and the first part of 22. Stop thinking about it. Were those some great, crazy years? Yeah, that was great. But what do you think the likelihood is of that coming back is? It was an anomaly. It's never happened in the history of real estate. And it was a great market. But that's not the market that we're in right now. So just do the work. This is a normal market. You can make a lot of money, but you can't be apathetic. You've got to get in there and hustle and have fun with it. This shouldn't be a job for any of us that we feel like there's this huge weight. So just go and do the work. How hard is it actually to talk to someone? I mean, is that difficult? No. So lighten up, stay in the pocket, do what you're supposed to do. And then I'm going to circle back to my first thing. Focus on this first quarter being perfect. And if you do that, the rest of the year is going to be perfect too if you do the right things. So those are my random thoughts for 2024. Who's got questions? Oh, thank you, Miguel. Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments?
Quick question. When is the September event?
I can tell you really quick. Let me pull my calendar up. And if you guys weren't at the September event last year, oh my gosh, it was so great. And it's going to be even better this year. Ray and everyone, it's going to be in Scottsdale, September 23rd and 24th.
Thank you.
It's a 2-day event. You don't want to miss it. Probably some of, and I didn't want to, this is going to sound braggadocious, but other than Steve and Gordon and I, we had some of the brightest minds in real estate in that room. Wouldn't you agree with that, Ray and Michael?
That's great.
Beth, I mean, it was absolutely a fantastic event, and we're going to be bringing it to you again this year. So get that on your calendar, September 23rd and 24th. So any other questions or comments?
Cydney.
Yes.
Hi. I have a quick question when you were talking about the tech. Just telling people not to be afraid of technology or new things. Is that the extent of it?
Yeah, and I think when I get something that says you do a webinar on something, I'm attending the webinar. I want to know. I'm not keeping my head in the sand. And I think that for a lot of you guys, that's why I said the deprogramming, your head's been in the sand because there's been some rhetoric that we don't want to pay attention to those things. We got to know what's happening, be current. So who else has a question?
Cydney, I have a quick question. It's Adam here. How are you? Thanks for this.
You're welcome.
You talked briefly at the start about moving from task to task efficiently. That's something I've never thought about. Could you just elaborate on that for a couple of seconds?
Thank you. So the first thing I would say is you have to be present 100% in whatever task you're involved in. So if I am prospecting, I need to be 100% present. And then if I have to go to my child, I'll use this as my child's school to go read to them. I need to be present there as well. So I've got to clear my mind and go to the second task and not think about my prospecting while I'm with my child. If I have a listing appointment, I need to be present at that listing appointment. If I'm prospecting and an offer comes in, I can't think about that offer. I have to focus on what I'm doing at the time. I can't negotiate the offer and worry that my assistant is taking 15 minutes longer at lunch. Guys, you have to learn to control your emotions and control what's going on in your head. And if you look at the superstars in any industry, Adam, that is one of the things that they are masters at, is that ability to be present and to move from task to task. So if you have an assistant or staff, get them to support you in this. If you don't, set up systems so that you can support yourself in that, because it's critical. Thank you for that question. Who else has a question?
Great question, Adam. Thank you. Cindy, so around that topic, I almost forgot to ask, is there a good book or something that we can listen to help us just bring clarity to time management, prioritizing, et cetera? Is there one that you recommend?
Michael, do you have one that you want to recommend? We can't hear you. You're on mute.
There you go.
10x is better than 2x.
That's a good one. And what's the one? There's another one that it escapes me. What is it? The 12-week year, something like that is another good one. You know, and the truth is, guys, one of the things I coach on is developing like the perfect week. Here's a great way: is develop your perfect week. If everything were perfect, what would you be doing from the time you got up until you went home? And you look at that and you say, okay, every morning I'm going to role play at 7:30. I'm doing emails from 8 to 8:30. I'm talking to my assistant from 8:30 to 9. I'm on the phone from 9 to 12, whatever it looks like for you. I pick up my daughter every Thursday at 4:00. It's perfect, right? And then the goal is to try to make every week perfect. Now, is it going to be perfect? No, it's not going to be perfect. It never is. But if you get off track, you go back to your perfect week. You say, what should I be doing right now? Boom. And you go back to that. If you have to move a prospecting block because you had to go to an appointment, you've got to move that block someplace else. So it starts with the perfect week. Great question. Who else has a question? All right, guys, I was so happy to be with all of you today. If you need anything at all, we're all here for you. Steve and Gordon and I, we're excited about 2024. My prediction is it's going to be a great year for those of you that are willing to do whatever is necessary. And it doesn't have to be, we're not talking about working 80 hours a week. You just got to work smart.